The silver gravy ladle slips from my fingers and the sound explodes, ceramic against tile. A small private disaster that feels monumental. Warm brown arcs across my apron in a messy, beautiful map of everything I have been carrying for years. For a second I stand frozen, the kitchen humming around me like a different world, and I listen. Laughter comes from the dining room, bright, practiced, easy. Glasses clink, a toast I am not invited to join. My mother's voice rises, soft and syruped with pride, and somewhere in the middle of it all is Ethan, my brother, wide-shouldered, polished as a billboard, already perfectly at ease at the center of their orbit. He arrived 2 hours ago, designer bag in hand, the kind of arrival that rearranges the furniture of a room. Suddenly everything tilts toward him. "Thank you for bringing the family together," my father says, and the words slice clean through me as if someone has sharpened a blade and handed it to him. I've been in this house since Tuesday. 2 days of chopping, caramelizing, basting, the stove's heat rearranging my hairline and my patience. I woke at 5 on the morning of Thanksgiving because tradition required the bird be in the oven before the sun knew my name. I threaded rosemary between thighs of turkey, hummed until my throat dried, and scrubbed pans until my wrists ached. I did it because I love them, and because my hands know how, because every small kindness I offer is a deposit I hope will someday be returned in equal measure. From the hallway I watch them through the doorway. My mother fusses with Ethan's collar like he's an heir and a prop at once. My father fills his glass. Aunt June leans in to fish for the next triumph in Ethan's story. Not one of them looks for me. Not one of them notices the smear of gravy on my apron, or the mud on my shoes from the walk I took this morning to clear my head. I bend and wipe the spill, pretending the motion is merely domestic, nothing more than a chore. But inside me tectonic plates shift. I have spent 35 years playing invisible, and I am suddenly tired of it feeling like the only role I fit. When my mother's iPad glows on the counter with her Facebook feed, curiosity carries my fingers across the screen, though I tell myself I won't look. "Excited for Ethan's special Thanksgiving menu, can't wait to taste what my talented son suggested for our family gathering," reads the caption. Talented son. No mention of the hours I bled into the meal. Photo after photo lines the feed. Ethan smiling beside her at graduations, birthdays, vacations. Me? I am the edge of frames, a shoulder, a blurred elbow, the back of my head carrying a casserole. A lifetime of standing behind the lens, and behind the linens, everything recorded except me, documented into a quiet erasure. The kitchen creeps smaller, the ceilings seem lower. I realize with a cold clarity how thoroughly I have been reduced. Not a daughter, not a woman with a career, but a utility. I am what feeds the family, what smooths their seams, what makes their celebrations legible. "Marin, where's the pumpkin pie?" My mother calls from the other room, using the name she has always used when she needs me. I slide the pies onto the sideboard with hands that tremble, place them carefully where they will be convenient to pass, and stand there like unwanted china. My mother doesn't look at me. "Set them there, honey, you can serve from there." I remember the 3 weeks of family planning texts. At first it was the usual flurry, a chorus of emojis and menu polls. Then came the line that changed everything. "We'll cook whatever Ethan likes this year since he's been so busy with his new position," and the little heart emoji that landed on top of it like frosting on a lie. I suggested we do something different, a restaurant on the bay, a break from the oven and the expectations, but tradition, she said. "Traditions matter, dear. Besides, you're so good in the kitchen." Translation: you're so useful in the kitchen. At the table 5 pairs of eyes lift, then drift back to Ethan. I feel the urge to disappear the way I always have, slide back into the stove's shadow and be useful until I am unseen. Instead, a small dangerous voice inside my chest says no. It is a single word, but it feels like a detonator. No. The syllable cuts the room in two. Conversation stops. Ethan's mouth hangs open mid-sentence. My mother's smile falters like a film strip skipping. My father's fork stills over the turkey. "I'm sorry?" my mother asks, as if polite confusion might return control. "No," I say again, because the first no tasted like something foreign and now the second one steadies me. "I won't be getting ice." Her face darkens. "Your brother drove all the way from Tampa." 2 hours, I correct myself. "I've been cooking for 2 days. Silence presses against us, full of the rules I have broken. The moment stretches, heavy and dangerous. For a second I imagine everything shattering, their approval, the small currency I have traded for years in the supermarket aisles of our lives. The room waits for my apology. It does not come. "Marin's just tired from cooking all day," my mother says faintly, smoothing her napkin like that will stitch the world back together. "The turkey is exceptional this year, don't you think?" Ethan resumes his story as if nothing happened. "The current swallows my rebellion whole. But something is different. I have tasted resistance, and it is not bitter." Returning to my seat, I pour myself a full glass of wine, and when Aunt Rachel, a quiet presence in all this, who has watched me for years with small knowing looks, nods at me across the table, I drink and feel warm bloom across my chest. The warmth is not from the wine. Later, while they laugh over stories of Ethan's promotion and his golf game with that client whose name I never learn, I slip back into the kitchen. I am not fleeing. I am cataloging. For the first time, the recipe of my life is being read with eyes that are not mine, and I do not like the margins. That night insomnia gnaws at me. The house is quiet except for the ticked hum of the refrigerator, and the patterned breathing of people who take my presence for granted. I sit at my desk and open a blank notebook. At the top of the page I write, in neat stubborn letters, things I want. It's a question I have never been asked out loud by anyone, including myself. My hands hover over the paper like a diver over deep water. What do I want? What has my body been making room for while I arrange the plates of others? Answers come as small, nearly ridiculous things at first. To be called by my full name in the family text. To have my promotion noticed without being dismissed as a fluke. To book a ticket to a place where my laughter did not require orchestration. Work becomes my rebellion. Monday morning I show up early and tell my boss, in a voice that surprises even me, that I am taking Friday off. He blinks, unused to my sentences being declarative. Everything okay? He asks like someone checking on a plant. Taking care of myself, I say. I feel like an imposter and like a revolutionary at once. Jessica from accounting drifts by mid-morning with a coffee and as the day loosens invites me to an office get-together. No family drama, she promises. The phrase tastes like oxygen. I say yes. The very idea of a night where the only thing expected of me is my presence feels scandalous and glorious. The office party cracks the armor. For the first time in weeks I laugh without measuring the sound. The next morning my mother calls, brisk and rehearsed. Did you get my text about coming early to help Ethan set up? We're counting on you, she asks. There was a time when my answer would have been immediate, all apologies and logistics. But my chest is a new geography. I'm busy, I say. The words land with a weighty, pleasant thud. What does that mean, she asks. The disapproval in her voice is a tool she knows well. It means I have my own commitments, I say. I have deadlines and I'm not available to run around on Ethan's schedule. There's a pause that feels longer than silence. Family comes first, she protests. As if it were a law chiseled in stone. I tell the truth. For you family means Ethan. For me family means being seen. I'm going to think about it. After the call I feel explosive and fragile at once. Aunt Rachel, bless her, shows up as reinforcement. A small jubilant rebellion wrapped in sensible shoes. I'm visiting Orlando instead, she says. The smile in her voice a kind of warmth to hold. Count me in if you want to start our own Christmas. Jessica helps me plot the escape. Key Harbor, a boutique hotel with hammocks and cocktails and no obligations except being present. I book it with hands that no longer tremble. It feels less like running away, and more like defection from a gatekeeper system that kept me bending and apologizing. When my mother hears the news, she acts wounded and theatrical in equal measure. She brings her worn photo album to coffee like an offer on a table. Page after page shows Ethan framed as a center-of-the-world boy, birthday beaming, graduation proud. My pictures where present show me working, a hand carrying deviled eggs, a blurred shoulder setting bowls. I lay down my own evidence on the table, receipts of the years I cooked, a handwritten list, 32 gatherings I set up and cleaned, 4 birthdays rescheduled for Ethan's schedule. Her practiced defenses flinch when confronted with numbers. I am not dramatic, I am thorough. Are you really willing to throw away your family over petty jealousy, she demands, playing the guilt like an instrument. For a heartbeat old tremors return. Then I hear a voice that is not hers, my own, steadier than ever. I won't be your servant, she tries bargaining. We'll manage, we just want to be together. I lay the confirmation email across the table. The paper is small and luminous, Christmas in the tropics. A week where I wake to the sound of the sea, not the clatter of plates. For the first time I choose myself and then, astonishingly, others choose me back. Friends offer their company, co-workers make space. The family group chat explodes with a kind of stunned silence. 1,000 unread messages that are really a single loud noise. How dare she? My father, who has not called me directly in years, texts, "We need to talk." The text lands like a pebble into a pond and creates ripples. I do not intend to return immediately. I go to Key Harbor and the sun stitches itself onto my skin. For 3 days I eat without checking a timer, swim without calculating everyone else's intake of sun, laugh until the table around me shakes. I post a photo not to provoke but because for the first time I want to document myself actually in the frame, and it's like being painted in color after years of monochrome. Back in Orlando, the holidays pass with a careful, tender reconstruction. I host Thanksgiving for friends, and for Aunt Rachel, who squeezes my hand and says, quietly, "This beats the stiff dining room of a certain brother's home, doesn't it?" It does. The centerpiece is driftwood and shells from Key Harbor. The plates do not match and no one cares. The food is shared family style. No one expects me to be preternaturally efficient. I sit and I eat, and I savor rather than serve. I do not have to apologize for my seat at the table. The weeks that follow are a new made wardrobe I have chosen rather than been measured for. My father calls again, hesitant, a phone line trying to find out if the script has truly broken. "Would you host Christmas?" he asks, an invitation coded in years of learned assumptions. We agree on terms, no expectations, mutual help in the kitchen, for him and my mother to be present but not overbearing. The air between us tastes like a truce, fragile as sugar glass. Ada, my neighbor and an elderly seamstress who makes everyone's holidays feel like a storybook, stops by with mending and empathy. People can learn if they want to, she says. Her voice is small armor. I find myself wondering, are my parents capable of learning, of truly seeing me rather than the result of my labor? The answer arrives not from a grand confession but in small stutters. My mother tries to include me in conversations now without immediately redirecting them to Ethan. My father, in those tentative calls, asks about my job with a curiosity that is real if still raw. It is not perfect. Roots that have grown tangled do not unknot overnight. But a shift seems possible, and a part of me lets a cautious hope unfurl. And then the group chat sends a casual message. Ethan's housewarming. We're moving the dinner to his place next week. He wants to throw a small reception for his clients. Old instincts twitch in me. The expectation returns like a tide. I tell them calmly that I will not be attending. I will not be complicit in the erasure of my labor. This is when the small world begins to tilt toward exposure. Aunt June, who has spent her life as a polite satellite to the family's center, shows up at my door with a box of things. Sylvia said I should give this to you, she says, and the box is heavy with old letters and an address book with edges like fish scales. Inside, among faded Polaroids, is a small stack of receipts, wire transfers, memos, notes about down payments, dates annotated in my mother's tidy hand. At first I can't breathe. My eyes trace the numbers and the names. There, dated 2 years ago, payment details for a mortgage deposit, a direct transfer from Dad to Ethan. There's a note for Ethan's down payment. Love, Mom. I feel something like a slow burn turn into a bonfire. For 30 years they told me I was irresponsible with money when I bought my tiny Orlando condo outright. They told me I had overreached, that a woman shouldn't risk financial independence. Meanwhile, the same hands who counseled caution had quietly wired a down payment to Ethan's account and then narrated the gift as an act of benevolent family support. When I asked about it years ago, they called me ungrateful and told me not to be cynical. Now, the documents sit in my palm like a verdict. I do not tell anyone immediately. Instead, I make a list. I am meticulous. I collect the posts where they cheer for Ethan and ignore me, the dates of my promoted roles that were never publicly acknowledged, the receipts of fines I paid alone, the times celebrations slid around my calendar so Ethan's events could take center stage. I build an archive of neglect and favoritism, a quiet dossier. The twist that clinches everything is merciless in its simplicity. I run the posts through a timeline and map them against bank records, and the pattern is not random, it's intentional. There is a choreography to their affection. Ethan is not simply lucky, he is the beneficiary of an arrangement that erases me. The realization is not about money alone, it's about ownership, of tradition, memory, narrative. They have been choosing him as the face of the family while scripting me as the background. I decide to expose the pattern, but not in spectacle. I am not the vengeful type who wants to humiliate. I want truth to be visible, undeniable. So I build a simple thing, a photo album and a video clip. I collect family photos and overlay them with captions, the dates, who posted them, and what was really happening behind the frames. I record my voice reading the timeline of holidays, of parties, of promotions I achieved without a nod. I stitch it together with music that rises like surf. My plan is surgical, a conversation, evidence, a public record that is not meant to shame as much as to illuminate. I invite my parents and Ethan to my apartment one Saturday afternoon, under the pretense of returning a platter and having coffee. When they settle like a family that expects to be served, I place the tablet on the coffee table and tap play. Images roll, photos of Thanksgiving with me in the background, captions that read, November 2019, Lark cooked the entire meal. Mom posts, proud of Ethan. Another slide, December 2020, Lark's promotion, no public post. Ethan's small promotion bracketed in praise. The soundtrack swells like an accusation. They watch. My mother's mouth forms the word Lark, small and surprised. My father's hands go white along the arm of the chair. Ethan, who had always assumed the spotlight was his by birthright, blinks like someone who has finally noticed the theater curtain and is shocked there's someone backstage. What is this? Ethan asks, which is the gentlest form of the truth. He had never been asked to notice. I put the tablet down and meet their eyes. This is what it looks like when a family chooses a star and forgets the stagehands. I say, these are the years I made this house run. These are the receipts your posts never acknowledge. My mother tries apology. It slides like oil off glass. We didn't mean, she begins. Intent doesn't erase impact, I answer, and my voice is a ledger. I do not explode. I do not throw words like knives. I speak and dismantle at the same time. The fallout is immediate and messy. My father retreats into silence and then remarkably calls Aunt June to ask for details he had never requested. Ethan for the first time looks lost. He had been taught to bask and not to see. He asks me why I never said anything. The answer is simple and bitter. I tried to earn love through usefulness because it was the only language I had been taught. After the meeting, the house is quieter in a different way. The old choreography breaks, and like a ship with its rudder clipped, family life spins into a period of recalibration. My mother vacillates between contrition and the urge to perform normalcy. She posts a photo of a cake and for the first time tags me with a caption that recognizes my name rather than my function. It's small and beautiful, and infuriating because the past cannot be unwritten with a hashtag. My father texts, "Can we come for Christmas?" I feel an old reflex, a soft spot expecting me to fold. But this time I am steadier. I agree, but only under terms that insist they help, truly help. That my mother and my father be present in the kitchen, not as critics but as partner. I want to test whether pattern can be interrupted with boundaries. Christmas arrives like a test. We work together, my father chops, my mother peels, Ethan attempts a tart and curses at the oven like someone learning a language. The day is far from perfect. Old ways press in. My mother slips into directives as naturally as breathing, but we course correct. I hand her a paring knife. She learns to ask before she takes. For the first time in a long time, when I step back, there are other hands doing the small necessary work. After dinner, the family sits in the living room, not in the ritualized arrangement where they ignore the laborer, but in a tentative circle. My father clears his throat, embarrassed at the confession he doesn't yet have the words for. "I didn't realize," he says simply, and the words are full of the weight of decades. He tries to make amends in small, clumsy ways, a note of congratulations in the family group text, a mention at dinner that he's proud of my work. It's imperfect, but it's movement. Then the twist arrives, the one I hadn't expected. Aunt June, who had been quietly watching the family's balance, takes me aside and presses a small envelope into my hands. Inside is a letter she wrote decades ago, addressed to my mother, tucked away and never sent. In it she says what my mother refused to hear, that family worth is not a ledger of who brings the best gift, but a measure of who will stand by you when you are small and ordinary and doing the dishes. The letter is dated the year I turned 12. It is a testament to the life my mother could have had if she had read it. The discovery deepens the ache and softens something else inside me. Change is not an event. It is a series of small, stubborn acts. But not everything heals. There are consequences that catch like thorns. My brother, thrummed by the realization that his privilege was purchased, reacts the way privilege often does when peeled with confusion. With a sudden need to assert himself, he posts about his hard work and success, a defensive portrait painted in words. His clients are reassured. Family friends call. The world moves on, picking up favorite narratives. I, however, have shifted my own narrative. I begin to feel the edges of a different life. At work, opportunities open when my boss, who had always appreciated my thoroughness, recognizes and rewards it in public this time. I take a promotion that would have been mine regardless, but now I accept it without guilt. I travel for work and for pleasure. I buy small, ridiculous things that are mine alone. A lamp that I have wanted for years, the kind with a brass neck that glows like a secret. For a while the revenge I desired is quiet and domestic, a life curated without apology. But then, late one night, an email lands that complicates everything. It's a forwarded message from a mutual friend who works in Ethan's industry. Subject line, questionable document. Attached, a series of contracts for a company Ethan claimed he was developing that names him as sole proprietor. The twist is that the contracts include an initial investment that bears my parents' signature as a guarantor, and the terms are murky, more predatory than familial. I read the documents until the edges of the screen blur. Ethan had been telling stories at dinners about his new venture, the one that required a little capital, and my parents had paid. The payments were not presented as help, but as trust. Did Ethan exploit that trust? Or did my parents, blinded by affection for their eldest, sign for something they didn't understand? The temptation for a classic theatrical revenge is strong. Reveal the documents at Thanksgiving, watch jaws drop, walk away with a cinematic flourish. But I have learned that spectacle rarely brings the closure one expects, so I do something more precise. I bring the documents to a lawyer who specializes in family contracts and ask for counsel. The legal advice is clinical and clear. Gather all the receipts, request bank records, and if there is misrepresentation, the loans can be contested. Armed with procedure and not vengeance, I go to my parents. I do not yell. I do not dramatize. I hand them a fold. "We need to talk about these," I say. The room holds its breath. Mom denies. Ethan is defensive. Dad looks like a man whose world is tipping. The lawyer's letter, which I simultaneously to their inboxes, is a scalpel. It demands explanation. For the first time, questions are pointed and specific. The family scrambles to respond. There are hurried conversations, clumsy explanations, and then finally an admission. A series of checks were written, transfers made, and the language used at the time promised repayment in vague terms that now morph into an uncomfortable reality. Ethan apologizes in person later, awkward and raw, and suddenly less polished. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he says. "I thought it was an investment. I didn't mean to put you in a position. You put us in a position," I say calmly. "You asked for something and we gave it without understanding. That's the pattern I was asking us to stop. There are consequences. My parents consult with accountants. My father learns, humiliated about the reality of the contracts. My mother is quiet and awful with regret. We renegotiate debts. Ethan agrees to restructure terms and to open his ledgers. It is imperfect, but the scales begin to balance. My revenge, if it is fair to call it that anymore, is not a blow but a reclamation. I do not want to ruin my brother. I want the truth to be visible, for my parents and for me, and for the family to be able to make choices with eyes open. The legal process is ugly and slow, but it forces the conversations we never had. Months pass. The edges of holidays fray and settle into new shapes. When my parents come for dinner, they bring their willingness in their hands. A casserole, a question, an attempt. We cook together. Sometimes we fail publicly and laugh about it. My father asks about the people I work with. My mother calls with small invitations to lunch that are not Aunt Rachel, who has been my quiet ally, says one afternoon, "You took us with you, you showed us how to choose ourselves, and some of us followed." There are moments of tenderness that feel almost stolen. A call from my father when a promotion at work lands for me, an honest "well done," that does not hide behind an explanation of why he could not do the same. There are regressions too, old habits that crop up like weeds, but I no longer view them as failures. They are the messy, human process of learning. Ethan and I find a new equilibrium that isn't spectacularly loving but isn't vicious. He is capable of humility when the bills arrive, and of genuine gratitude when I teach him how to roast vegetables without burning the edges. He does not become a saint overnight, but he knows how to apologize and, more importantly, to listen. The real revelation for me is how small acts create a net of safety. I continue to build a life that does not require negotiation for permission. I travel. I accept recognition at work. I cultivate friendships whose expectations are mutual and kind. I don't seek revenge as a final act. The revenge was the steady accumulation of choices that allow me to live as myself. On the first anniversary of my Key Harbor trip, I hang a photograph on my wall. Me, barefoot on a sunlit terrace, hair wind-tangled, laughing at something someone said. I look at it and think, this is the woman who refused to be invisible. It is not a vanquishing. It is a settlement, a domestic triumph of living on my own terms. When my father calls now, it is different. He asks for advice on something mundane, how to set a timer in his new phone. I laugh and walk him through it. He laughs too. The conversation is ordinary and perfect for that reason. It means there is room to breathe. It means we can be clumsy and still be family. A final scene. Thanksgiving returns again and I am the hostess, but not the invisible work. I stand at the stove and I also sit at the table. My guests are a patchwork of chosen and blood family. Plates are passed from person to person. I watch faces I love and faces I have let go. Aunt June tells a story about a boat she once missed, and we all laugh until the room leaks light. In the quiet that follows, my mother takes my hand across the dishes and says, softly, "Thank you." It is not a full absolution. It is not a cure-all, but it is a start. I squeeze back and feel the weight of years lighten just enough. Revenge, I have learned, is often a poor word for what I have achieved. I outsmarted the narrative, not to humiliate, but to insist on my reality. I reclaimed the language they had used to define me, and wrote myself into the frame. If you feel invisible, call one friend tonight, and make a plan to leave the house for a day. Book a room, join a group dinner, or take a walk that's only for you. Begin by saying no once this week, and notice how it changes what they expect of you.